Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. I have a weird lighting situation. It's not really that interesting, but I do have. I think our big spider's still alive up there. That big one I showed you maybe a week or so ago. It's cold. You can see my breath. Yeah, but I like doing these outdoors as long as it's not too frigid or inclement weather. I'll do them out here. I'm looking for my boy. That's a big spider. I think he's still curled up and still alive, or she. I respect its privacy. Um, I have no idea how to tell a female spider from a male spider. I'm waiting for it to do a Charlotte's Web and maybe say what an awesome pig I am, but it won't. It just hasn't yet. It's a little disappointing. Uh, what I wanted to talk about, speaking of disappointing, is I was reading in the paper, yesterday's paper. I don't know if y'all know who Travis Scott is. I don't know his music. I know he's a very popular rapper. I also know that he at one point had a McDonald's burger named after him. It was basically, I think, a quarter pounder with bacon on it. I don't understand how you get to that rare stratification that you can have a burger named after you at the biggest burger producer on the planet. I don't know why there's not a Tom Hanks burger or a Anthony Kiedis burger, but there's somehow there's a Travis Scott burger. I remember that coming out, I think, right at the beginning or maybe just a little ahead of the pandemic. It was weird to me because I was like, I didn't know who Travis Scott was. I was like, who the hell's Travis Scott? And Logan's like, I think he's some sort of rapper. But anyway, what I'm getting to is over the weekend at Travis Scott concert in Houston, Texas. Like, it wasn't Houston, Oregon. It was Houston, Texas. 8 people died in a rush at the beginning of the concert. 8 people got trampled to death. I can't imagine. It's got to be a horrific death for one thing. And what is going on with humanity that this is still happening? This is still happening. People are getting trampled to death. Remember a few years ago at Black Friday, a person got trampled to death at a Walmart. And despite been born in New York and loving the city, and generally not being afraid of crowds, I also don't like them either. I've been in some crowded situations, and this incident made me think about it. It's tragedy, really. It's a sad thing. I mean, you go to see your favorite rapper, or probably your favorite rapper, or at least someone you really like, enough to be very close. I mean, like probably close to the front row, and there was just a swarm toward the stage, and next thing you know, you're fucking dead. It's crazy. Reminded me of some crowd situations though that I've experienced in my life. Maybe some of you remember this. Hopefully you've heard of it. We used to have a thing in Boulder on the Pearl Street Mall called the Mall Crawl. Now, for those of you who don't know what Pearl Street Mall is, it's one of those shopper-friendly walking malls like 16th Street Mall down in Denver. Traffic is not allowed to go on the streets of the mall. It's all pedestrian traffic, and it's a great place for commerce to occur and people to see not only the economic parts of Boulder, but also some of the unusual people that inhabit Boulder. There are buskers and homeless people and people trying to make money on the mall as well. At least last time I checked, I haven't been there in several years, but it's a fun place to go and just watch humanity be humanity. But years ago, back in the 80s, they had what they called the Mall Crawl, and every Halloween, bunches of stupid people would go. I was 19. I went with my best friend at the time, or one of my best friends, Chris Miles, who also went to Jefferson. And we decided, let's go to Mall Crawl. It's a lot of fun. And it's hundreds, maybe thousands at the time, of drunken college-age people dressed up in their Halloween costumes. And it was just wall-to-wall people. And it was one of those times that I remembered. It got a little hairy for a minute. And I remember I was dressed as a priest, so that was fun. And Chris was dressed as like a hazmat guy, which was cool, but a kind of a bulky, weird costume and not easy to get around. And Chris was very thin, so it was almost like a human kite at ground level. So there was a point though where it was getting a little crazy, and Chris was, like I said, very thin. He was like 6'2", 130, very thin guy at the time, and I had to grab him by his chest of his costume and just go, "You're coming this way with me," because he was it's like the walls closing, like Indiana Jones. It was like, oh my god, my friend's gonna die. So we got out of there. So that was kind of scary. I do want to also bring up Mall crawl was hilarious. At the same time, you'd see all kinds of people in all kinds of crazy costumes. One of my favorites, there was just a dude standing on, like, they had big boulders there, to, I think, probably keep vehicles out and keep people from being too ridiculous or whatever. But there's a guy on top of a boulder in a trench coat on, and then he he just opened it, and this huge bouncy, like, I don't even know what he made it out of, but this humongous, like, as big as your leg penis would just flop out, and he had nothing on except like beige beige underwear, because it was a white guy move. He wouldn't need brown underwear. He needed beige underwear. So he looked naked under there with this huge penis, and every time like a couple girls would come by, he'd just flop it in their faces, and they'd scream because it was scary because something's popping out of him from this guy in a trench coat. But that was my favorite costume that year. So that was back in probably 86 or 87. So like I said, I was 19 years old. That was a lot of fun. But still, sometimes the crowds could be scary. Another time, right around that same time for me, I was also 19 years old, so it was January 2nd, 1987, and I was very excited because my friend Dominic and I got tickets for Run DMC. It was a big deal because Run DMC had been involved in some really hairy stuff of their own. There were they would have huge concerts in stadiums like in LA, and the Bloods and the Crips would show up and start beating the shit out of just these massive wilding fights that would take up an entire section of the stadium. A couple people got killed. They had to put their tour on hiatus for a while, and I think we were like one of the first stops on their comeback tour. It was a much more mellow place. Denver, first of all, we were starting to experience the Bloods and the Crips a little bit in 1987, but we were just a mellower city. We still are generally, but they showed up, I believe it was called the Auditorium Arena. It's now part of the DCPA, the Denver Center for Performing Arts. It was I don't know, a few thousand of us, I guess. We somehow had front row tickets, and you're just sitting there, and there's just chairs, and you're just sitting there, and all of a sudden, Bobby Brown came out. And Bobby Brown was before he hit really, really big. The next year in '88, his solo album came out, but he had gone solo, and I think he'd already made one album, and it wasn't super successful, but it was good enough that he was opening for Run DMC. He came out, beatboxed, had a lot of fun, and then we were still just kind of standing where our chairs were. A lot of people were into it. I wasn't that into it. I was more there for Run DMC. And then Run DMC came out, and everyone just rushed forward. And it is a frightening thing when you're in the front and people are like, "Fuck you, I'm in the front." And I just kind of stood there. Dominic and I said, "Just fuck this. We're gonna let these insane people be where they want to be." We ended up like 10 rows back. A lot of fun concert, but there were some frightening moments when a crowd like that just loses their minds. And there aren't you would think at this point there would be systems in place. It's also reminded me of the Who. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was a long time ago. I want to say 1980, 82 maybe. There was a Who concert in Cincinnati and a bunch of people died. I want to say like a dozen maybe, but because of the same situation, and it just happens way too often. We're not pack animals, we're not herd animals. We should be at a point in our evolution where we at least know that this can happen and avoid it from happening. And so it just was disappointing and sad that this happened. But I guess in the end, I think Dr. Drew Pinsky said it best on his show Loveline. We are just basically primates that can talk. This is really kind of true. We prove it every day. Just the world's insane, and I got another 90 seconds to maybe talk about the insanity. But those are my most pressing crowd situations that I remember. Kind of reminded me of the time I was at the anti-Klan rally. I know I've mentioned that in a past episode, but that was pretty crowded and a little hectic as well, because you had a lot of angry people. You had about 60 angry Nazis on the steps of the Capitol, but you had about 10 times that many, about 600 angry counter protesters, me included, calling these guys white niggers and such. And by the way, I always qualify that. The black guys started that chant, and so we joined them because it was great to watch the Klan and Aryan Brotherhood and Nazis and those types of guys really hate being called white niggers. So just so you know, that's a little insider information. But that was also a pretty pressing crowd. I just generally don't like crowds. I stay away from parades. I like crowds when I have a mic and they're there to listen to me and try to make them laugh. But outside of that, not a big crowd guy. It's probably why I kind of like the suburbs now and may even go further away someday. Maybe I'll end up in Vermont. You never know. Anyway, that's my talk about crowds. And like I said, a real tragedy in Houston. Hopefully we can put systems in place to avoid those tragedies in the future. All right, guys, thanks for checking it out. I'll get back to you soon with another video. See you later. Bye.